Hello, everyone. Alena with Celebrate Every Step here, and welcoming you to the podcast today. And we are going to talk about Bianca from Pebble+Root and have a nice conversation. But we're also going to be talking about how to really take care of yourself in the day to day, how to recognize that there's ebbs and flows to our emotions, to our life experiences, and really how to bring in that sacredness and intention in your everyday life. So, welcome, Bianca. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Alena. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. So, Bianca was part of our expo last year, and she's also one of my very best friends. And that's because she's so amazing and very dynamic. I love people that are dynamic and bring just so many amazing things to the table. And so that's Bianca in a nutshell. Just really dynamic and bringing all the things to the table. So she is bringing in her artistry. Her and her husband do woodworking together. And then each of them kind of works off of the other's work. So Bianca brings in her crystal knowledge and crystal art into the woodworking that her husband Justin does. And you've even stepped into stained glass this past year, some crystal jewelry. And on top of that, she is also bringing her crystal alchemy sessions to us this year, and also mediumship. So I can't wait to talk to you about that, because I actually haven't got to talk to you since you did your mentor class, where you really stepped into owning that side of your gifts. So I'm exhausted just reading all that. And on top of that, mom of four. So yeah. And entrepreneur with you and your husband both working in the business. So exhausted just reading it all.
It is a lot. I can't stop. You know what I mean? Like, it just got to keep going.
Yes. One foot in front of another. And that's actually what we were talking about. Was I think when we get just caught up in the next thing and then the next thing, and then, we need to eat dinner, and then we have this practice, and then we have this thing to do for our business, and I want to add this to what I offer, and I need to work on this project. Like, I can feel my anxiety coming up. I can feel my breath getting shallower, my mind starting to spin in a million different directions. And I would love to talk about how you slow that down and how you actually take really good care of yourself in the midst of all of the things, because I notice that a lot of people struggle in that area. It's just, they stay in that place of anxiety and whirlwind instead of being like, let me take a breath. Let me look at the rainbow. Let me look at the, spring flowers coming up, all of those kinds of things. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, it's really excellent that you brought that up this week, because I've been going through that this week. My husband travels a lot for work. So if you can imagine trying to take care of all the kids and all the housework and all the bills and all the mundane things that we as humans have to deal with every day, like, it can be really stressful, and you can feel swamped and overwhelmed very easily. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you get really caught up in that because, like you said, like, you just keep going and going, and you don't realize how much you need to stop and take extra special care of yourself. So this week was me living through that, actually. And I had a particularly poor mental health day a day or two ago. And for me, the first thing is, like, recognizing it, acknowledging it, not shaming it. Like, we all feel these feelings. It's not something that's unique to one person. Like, we all go through this kind of stuff. So I feel like remembering that you're not alone when you encounter this is really important. But then also reaching out, like, even as a practitioner and doing all this great stuff to help other people, like, sometimes I need help too. And a lot of times I get down on myself because, like, I should be strong and tough, and, like, I should be able to handle this myself. And it's okay to ask for help. that's why there's other people. That's why we have this amazing community. That's why there's all these beautiful souls with beautiful gifts that are able to help us through these really difficult times and just offer different perspectives, offer, just an ear to listen and a shoulder to lean on and a hug to embrace, and just remind you that you're safe, you're loved, and everything is going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I totally get the husband gone, because we did that for 5 or so years where he was gone, and it's a lot. And you don't realize the toll it takes on your nervous system and your well-being sometimes until you're out of it. And then it's like, whoa, how did I survive during that time? And I love that the point that you made about asking for help, because this week I also had a rough week, especially around grief. So, obviously, and pretty much everybody out there knows that our son Bodhi died in December of 2021. But there were some pieces of that are still really bothering me, specifically around the labor and the hospital transfer, the aftermath, just there's these certain pieces of it that really, really are plaguing me, almost kind of like a PTSD, I would say. And so just this week, I reached out to a therapist that does EMDR, which is a trauma specific therapeutic technique. It's very similar to hypnosis. I was actually planning to do that originally way back like 17 years ago, and then ended up going into hypnosis instead. But yeah, like I reached out and was like, hey, can we do a session? She's like, absolutely. So yeah, the helpers need help too. And it's okay to ask for help. I think a lot of us, that is for lack of a better word that I can think of right now, a toxic mentality, a survival mentality of survival, that we have to do everything on our own, that we can't rely on anybody else. And obviously that comes from past times when the people around us failed us. It comes from past times when people didn't show up in the way that we needed them to show up. And it's not that it was an all day, every day kind of thing, but it can just be in those key moments in your life and in your development when you didn't get the support, the love, the soothing that you most needed. And so, it does become a maladaptive coping to be independent to the point of our own detriment.
It's funny when you say that. So like, I actually made a call to my therapist this week. I haven't seen her in a long time. And when I called to schedule, they were like, oh, it's been 3 years since you've been there. I was like, it's been that long. Like, I can't believe that time has just flown by so quickly.
Yeah.
So I really feel that like keeping on top of yourself, like you don't have to go every week or even every month, but I mean like going every once in a while just to check in and check with yourself more than anything. Is so crucial, because it's so easy for it to slip away and get out of hand because you're busy. Life is busy, and like you just keep going and you just forget to take care of yourself, and so that was one of my big things this week.
One week turns into the next, into the next, into the next. And, a lot of my clients a lot have reached that kind of that maintenance phase where we do see each other every 4 to 6 weeks because of that, because I'm like, let's get it on the books, because before we know it, 6 months are going to have gone by and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I never reached out to Alena. Or I'll be like, oh my goodness, I haven't seen them in a while. And yeah, it's just the nature of our culture right now is pretty packed and pretty rushed.
Well, it's like catch-up. Like we're trying to make up for lost time. So
yeah,
it's like,
absolutely. Yeah. And in a lot of ways it feels good because, things were kind of shut down and slowed down for a while, but now it feels good to reconnect in person with people and, get the hugs and the benefit that brings about. But yeah, definitely being very aware of what you need. And if you're not sure what you need, reaching out to just somebody that you trust, like, hey, what do you do? The whole reason I'm doing these interviews is because I want people to hear lots of different options as to how to get the help that they need. So let's talk about the crystals first and foremost, because that was my introduction into you, was you having this immense knowledge of crystals, and then you moved into offering crystal alchemy sessions, which are amazing, by the way, so definitely check those out.
Thank you.
But yeah, let's talk about your journey into kind of this metaphysical world.
Sure. So, I would say, like, I've always had an interest in it, even since I was a little kid. But really, when I really started diving deep into it was after my second delivery. I had a pretty traumatic experience, an emergency C-section and all that stuff. And afterwards, I was kind of left feeling very empty and
Mm-hmm.
searching for something to help me cope with all of these traumas and feelings and things that I didn't understand. And I think a lot of it really pointed me in the direction towards crystals because it was very grounding. Like, I feel like when you have anxiety and like just the reeling, the replaying in your head of all these things and all the events. And for me, crystals really helped bring this sense of peace to myself. Like, it was something that I could focus on and something that I can utilize and play with, and they're pretty. And
Mm-hmm.
like, it was just everything I needed in the moment. And it just really snowballed from there. So at the time, I didn't really recognize that I had gifts per se. And I decided that I wanted to get my attunement for Reiki. So I'm attuned to level 2.
Mm-hmm.
And with that was where the crystal alchemy sessions came from, because I enjoyed using crystals and I recognized their capabilities and their frequencies, and I wanted to help people utilize them as well. So I developed these crystal alchemy sessions as kind of like a mashup between Reiki energy work and using crystals, but also like journeying. So when I do a crystal alchemy session, and this was prior to me understanding that I had these mediumship abilities, I would just kind of drop into that meditative space, and I would connect with my guides who'd connect with your guides, and they would pretty much guide me, direct me where I need to place the crystals, where I need to focus the energy healing, where, what we need to get rid of. And they'd work with me. And the sessions are amazing, both for clients and for myself, because it's just astonishing the beings that come forward. I'm working with all kinds of beings, ancestors, like I see grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles. I also work with like deities and Catholic deities, like Mary Magdalene is my homegirl. Like we're tight. So like all sorts of different beings come through, step through. It's really who the client most needs in that moment.
Yeah.
So, and it's a beautiful experience. A lot of times there's releases. So like there's tears. We usually end up having a conversation about the experience afterwards. And it's just so therapeutic just to release all that stuff that you've been holding on to. And yes, I love doing it. And so these crystal alchemy sessions have sort of evolved over the last year or so. Since I took my level 3 mediumship training with Desiree, and now I'm a certified medium. And I don't want to say I don't need to use the crystals, because I love to use the crystals, but like it's kind of a tool that I don't need to rely on solely anymore. Like they're still there for sure, and I love them. I'm rocking them always.
Yeah, of course.
But I think really recognizing that it's something that is within me, and I can tap into that anytime I need to or want to. And so now my mediumship has, what it really is basically like a journey almost. Like I journey with you to get whatever healing, to get whatever guidance or messages or reunion with whomever you might need to get in contact with, just to feel that comfort and ease and peace within yourself. And I've had some really amazing sessions with clients. And I love doing them. It's so fulfilling and satisfying to be able to be that conduit between, above and here, and be able to deliver these messages to help people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love all of that. And I figured at some point you would eventually like fess up and own up to the mediumship side of it. I know it's kind of like a big step because like I didn't even call myself a medium for a while. And it's like you've been connecting with spirits from like age 4, you know?
Yeah,
So
right?
like let's just call it what it is. And
Own it. You got to own
yes,
it.
exactly. And but it is hard because it's not exact, you know. So I don't want people to sit in front of me and be like, well, want to connect with this person and me not be able to pull them through, because that's not how it always works. You know, we can open that door, we can invite them in, but they don't always come through as strongly as other beings might. And so I love that, because that's kind of how my sessions are too. It is loved ones that you've known, it is ancestors that can be even further back. It is the ascended masters or the deities. It is guides, it is angels, it
I was
is
going to say angels. I
elementals.
forgot
Yeah.
to incorporate that in
Mhm.
my talk before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, so whatever that person most needs. And I love that the majority of my clients are completely open to whatever they most need in that moment. And I think that you get those same kind of clients that are just like, I want to connect to the divine, to my own divinity in whatever way that I most need in this moment. And, you know, I think with the stones, like, you know, my whole thing is lined up here with all of my spheres because they do all of my support. And they're like, I have them as chakras. So, you know, I have my petrified wood, and I have my olive opal, and I have my Amazonite and my indigo gabbra, you know, so they each have different properties that enhance whatever it is that I'm working on or my intention for that day. So, you know, I think that's how you bring those into the session. They're an enhancement to what is already within you and is what is already within that client. And so, yeah, that's why I love all the crystals all the time too. Yeah, and they're sparkly and pretty. I mean, you can't go wrong with a nice sparkly Amazonite, and you know, so yeah. So yeah, and you know, one of the things that we were talking about too is kind of pumping the brakes, slowing down, and recognizing that ebb and flow to life and to what we need. And I think when people show up for themselves to do a session with you, with me, with anybody else, you know, I almost congratulate people for taking the time and then also spending the money. Like that's a huge thing, especially with women, to spend money on themselves. Like huge barrier to this work, because for so many years they're pouring everything into everybody else around them, including their extra money. So for them to be like, actually, I need to do this for myself, it's kind of a big deal. So yeah, I always put that in the when we get into the relaxation and the hypnosis of like, feel proud of yourself for showing up for you today in the way that you most need. Be proud of yourself to slow down enough to identify what is bothering you, what you do want your life to look like. Be proud of yourself for accepting the healing, accepting the release, you know, all of those pieces and parts that you were talking about. It's kind of a big deal for people to slow down and do that. So
yeah. So this year has been a really transformative year for me already. I've been heeding that, you know, just the slow it down, take a breath, reassess, like you're going to figure it out. Just take a little bit of time right now. You don't have to go crazy. You don't have to be out of your mind, you know, like pump the brakes. It's okay. You know? So for me, taking that class and becoming certified at the beginning of this year was really big. And then after that, I actually really took a huge step back from social media, because I was finding myself getting drawn into places and spaces that I didn't really want to be in.
Yeah.
So I took some time away, and I'm still taking some time away. I actually just posted my vendor schedule today for things that I have lined up already. But I've just been kind of taking a breath for myself and allowing myself to really sink in and feel what I've been experiencing. So one of the big things that I do is I team up with Mariah from Terra Healing, and we put on these somatic release circles. And a somatic release is literally just like kind of dropping into your own space and feeling, wherever there might be tension or tightness, and then giving it the floor, allowing it that tension, that feeling to have its space, and then allowing it to express however it needs to be expressed. So that can manifest as like screaming or crying. It could be dancing. It can be laughter. There's no wrong way to do it. The idea is just allowing that to be expressed. So we actually have one coming up this Sunday, and I've got some really big plans for it. I'm hoping that the weather is going to stay nice because it's so beautiful this week.
I know.
But I think it's really important just to remind yourself that it's okay. Like, we have these feelings. It's not unnatural to have that kind of stuff, but the more you shove it down, the stronger it gets, and the more it's going to bubble up in like the worst ways possible.
Yeah.
So being able to give it that space to express itself so that you're not holding on to it anymore. I think about like that analogy about rocks in your backpack.
Yeah.
Like, you just keep putting rocks in and like, oh, I'll forget about it. I'm not going to think about it. But really, you're just adding more weight to your load until you just crumble. And nobody wants to be at the point where they're crumbling. So really taking care of yourself and recognizing like, okay, I got this feeling like swirling around inside. Let me take a little bit of time and space for myself to give it the floor and just allow it to be, and like no judgment. That's the biggest thing too, is like, you can't judge yourself on how you're feeling or what you're feeling. Like, you just have to let it do its thing. And the relief I feel that you experience when you allow yourself to express in those ways is just so like freeing, like it's necessary. And I'm happy to be able to provide that space for people to do that. So.
Yeah, it's so necessary, and people either push it down, bottle it up, or it comes out, or they overexpress. So there's kind of two examples of that. Well, I give people the analogy of the beach ball, the big blow up ones, that if you push them down in the water, the further you go and the harder you hold them down, the bigger that explosion out is. And I see that a lot, where it's just pushing down, ignoring, so whether we're talking rocks in the backpack or pushing that ball down, it is going to come out as bursts of anger, physical pain, mental and emotional pain, and just that buildup. Whereas if we stay on top of it and manage it and move through it as things are coming up, it just makes life so much more peaceful. It doesn't make it perfect, but it makes us better able to cope with it. I just noticed it this week. So, right before the interview, I couldn't get my door to close. And I'm like, I could feel my blood pressure coming up a little bit, because of course it's like 12:24 and I want to get on at 12:25. And I'm like, why won't this door close? And like, instead of going down that direction, I was like, okay, take a breath, open it up. Well, there was some like stamper in wedged in the door, like right at that crack, because I moved something. I thought it was that. And, it ended up being this stamper that I couldn't see. But like, had I like lost my shit, like we would have been, 15 minutes late while I like stomped around and figured it, whatever. And so, but I think that that's what happens a lot to people is, road rage is a good example. Like, you finally let up all that pent up emotion on somebody in another car. You lose your shit about something seemingly small, but in that moment, it's not small. It is like the end of the world. I was posting about that this week because I have a self-hypnosis course coming up where I think you took that, right? A couple
Yeah, I
years
did.
ago when I first did that. So, over I'm bumping it to 5 weeks because I felt like 3 weeks was too short to really give people the tools necessary. But, over the 5 weeks, you're learning self-soothing skills. You're learning how to catch yourself when those triggers come up. You're learning how to manage those emotions throughout the day instead of like all of a sudden you lay down at night and then you can't sleep because your thoughts are going a million different directions. So it's just like a really nice way to kind of cushion and take care of yourself, and especially that mental and emotional, which is tied to the physical, like what you guys do with the somatic circle. We can't really separate out these different areas of ourself. We're dynamic beings. And so it all works together, and we have to honor all of those parts of ourselves, or it just all starts to crumble and fall apart.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the somatic thing is really neat to me because there's actually somatic therapists out there. And obviously a big part of what I do is helping with that mind body connection and the body actually offering those messages. And, why is my neck tight right now? Or, what does that mean? Like I get like a psoriasis kind of rash on my neck when I'm super stressed out and not acknowledging something. So guess what? This week it popped up because I've been pushing away this grief. Like I don't have time for it. I don't have time for myself. And then sure enough, my body's like, here you go. You have to pay attention to this because it's super itchy. It's very uncomfortable. People can see it. It's embarrassing. So yeah, like your body forces you to pay attention if you don't take the time.
It sure does.
Yeah.
I know I feel like a lot of my back pain that I experience, like I'm sure that has a lot to do with like, my deliveries and things like that, and trying to work through the trauma that your body naturally goes through.
Yeah.
But like, being cognizant of that and doing things like stretching and making sure that like I'm listening to my body. My body wants me to stretch this way, or my body is telling me like I need to go for a walk and get some fresh air and like just don't worry about dinner tonight. Be like, you can go and take a walk, and that's more important than trying to, concoct this like 3-hour gourmet meal, like go and take some time. And I feel like really listening to your body is so important.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. Yeah. It's not just the mental and emotional. It is because I was like, did I start eating something different? Did I change detergent? So I was also looking at the practical side of it. Like, is there something that also changed within my environment in the last week? So yeah, it's bringing in all of those aspects, the physical, the diet, the environment, the detergent, and then the mental and emotional of like, okay, what are you not acknowledging? What is irritating you? Because that's the skin rashes are like an irritation. That's the significance of it. So it is just really neat when we can slow down enough and be aware enough to tap in and listen and acknowledge and then actually do something about it. So
and that's the key part, is the slowing down so that you can hear, like with the busyness of how our days go, it's so easy to forget that we need to listen as well. So or listen deeper within us instead of just like around us in our surroundings. Like it comes from inside.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the key to mediumship, to the psychic or intuitive piece, that I do believe that everybody has the ability to connect with the other side. But it's that piece of understanding how to ground yourself, how to center yourself, how to actually listen and to notice the messages, but then the signs and symbols. I think that's probably my favorite thing to do for people, is when we have them in that nice relaxed state, when we invite their loved one in, okay, so now we have this beautiful connection right here, right now, and we get to say everything we need to say and feel all the things we need to feel. But moving forward, how are they going to show up for you?
Mm-hmm.
What signs or symbols or synchronicities are they going to use to get your attention? And so just simply bringing in that awareness, it's like, oh yeah, like this, they were already doing this, but I was questioning it or not sure. But now moving forward, I can trust that. I have a peace and a knowing that that is actually them trying to get my attention. That is like my favorite thing to do.
Yes. I have something similar that I do with my clients. At the end, I'll ask their guides before they leave if they have a gift for them. And a lot of times, like they'll show me, like crystals, specific crystals. So that's something cool that like I can send almost like homework. Like you can work with this crystal or, that frequency. Or like sometimes it's like butterflies or pennies or feathers, like very, kind of classic
standard.
Yeah. But I think for me, the releasing my judgment from it, like just trusting it, like whatever it is that's going to come up is meant for them in this moment. And, that was something huge that I had to overcome in myself, was just trusting myself and trusting that like whatever I was receiving was what they needed in the moment. And I feel like when you release that judgment, when you begin to trust yourself, like you can really drop in and deliver high quality messages and guidance and healing. And so yeah, like just I don't want to say, well, yeah, I will say surrendering. It's surrendering to the process and to the knowing and understanding and trusting that the beings above are here for us and our best interests. Like the universe is working with you, for you, for you. Like it's all for you. So yeah, I'm there with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I call it, or I say in mine, releasing expectation, letting go of the busy analytical part of our minds, because that place of connection does come from that more flowy, that more imaginative side of us. And that's where that doubt comes in, because it feels like they're making it up. It feels like it's what they're just hoping for, but it's not. When you feel that emotional connection and you feel that visceral knowing within your soul and within yourself, it's like that's the sweet spot. And it's really amazing to step into that for yourself, but then just to help other people step into that too. And yeah, I love surrender. It's a great word for that. Surrendering to the process and to the messages.
Yep. And trusting, having that faith too, that whatever comes through is meant for you in this moment,
Yeah, absolutely. I know, because I've had some really weird things come through, and I've just learned to not second guess it and not, push it away anymore. I'll just say it. And sometimes they don't always know what it means in that moment, but having the courage to just say it and offer it to them. And usually it'll come to light later on. I can remember one, I think it was just lace. So I was just like seeing lace and, like that, not like lace trim, but like lace garment or something. And I attribute it to a wedding dress. And the client was like, oh, I don't know what that is. I'm like, that's okay. Like, we'll just leave that there. Well, then later that day, she texted me and she was like, my sister has my grandma's lace nightgown. And I was like, oh, yeah, nightgown, wedding dress. Like, they're so similar. I could, but I didn't be like, oh, I don't know what that is. And I didn't freak out when she didn't know what it was exactly. It's like
sometimes it takes time to process it and assimilate it with what they're thinking or what they know, because we only know what we know. So I can't say like, everything that comes to me is exactly how it's going to be perceived by that other person, like it's only showing to me how I understand it, how I know it. So I just do my best to describe and explain it so that they can understand. And I think that's something that might be a misconception with some mediumship readings, is like, it's not just me telling you like the future. Like it's a conversation, really, you know, like I'm the medium, I'm in the middle between, you know, higher, like what's above us and you. So it's a communication. We're having a conversation. So like they're going to show me things that I know and that I understand so that I can adequately describe what's being shown to me, but it might be something completely different for you. Something that comes to mind for me was I had a client and their grandpa, or like whoever it was, it looked like they were rolling a cigarette like this, like they were doing this kind of emotion. And she's like, no, like he wasn't a smoker. Like he didn't do any of that kind of stuff. And then she was like, wait, he always used to take candy wrappers and roll them like this. And that was like his like key thing. So like for me, it was, I understood it as rolling a cigarette or rolling a, and like for her, it was no, like he used to do this all the time with his candy wrappers. It was like annoying because they were all over the place. And I'm like,
I love when stuff like that comes together, because it's like, how could you possibly know that or make that up? Because it's so specific to that being. Yeah, I absolutely love when stuff like that comes through. So I want to talk a little bit about the expo. So are you going to bring items to sell, or are you just offering your sessions this time around?
I will have some items to sell. I have a few vendor shows prior to yours. So whatever stained glass and bracelets and things like that are kind of like easier for me to transport, I'll definitely have with me.
Okay.
So yes, because I love the idea of helping to teach people about crystals and the frequencies and properties and how they can best use them. So that's something that yes, I will absolutely have at least bracelets and maybe some like tumbles and stuff like that with me to help explain and you know, give to people if they need them, if they feel called to their energies and, you know, feel like they could utilize them.
Excellent. Okay. And then they can also come to see you for the crystal alchemy sessions and then also the mediumship sessions. And so in the description, there will be your email for them to pre-book and prepay. And those sessions are going to be about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on what those look like, and be $100. So you can definitely reach out to me with any questions, reach out to Bianca with questions, or to schedule. And what else? Do you have anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up today?
So like, I do want to say I love expos, and I think sometimes people get a little gun shy as far as like, you know, because there's a lot of energy going and it's a lot to, you know, choose from. There's a lot of practitioners, there's a lot of services. So even if you feel like this might be something you'd be interested in, but maybe you want a more intimate setting, like I have a space where we can do one-on-one sessions, and, you know, it doesn't have to be just limited to that 45-minute block. So I highly encourage it, especially if you're looking to do some deep diving and really, you know, trying to either connect or get some healing done. Those longer sessions are more beneficial in my opinion. But if you're just trying to dip your toes in and see what I'm all about, then absolutely, definitely book a session with me at your expo.
Yeah. And I think that's the neat thing too. You don't have to pre-book. So, you know, I encourage people to, you know, at this point, I've done so many expos, and it, you know, when people stop by my table, I'll say, like, take a lap around and maybe even a couple, and notice what you're drawn to, notice who you're drawn to, pay attention to how you feel. And then that gives you an idea of what you actually want to spend your time, energy, and attention doing. But this is why I wanted to do these interviews too, because this gives people a chance to kind of meet you ahead of time and get a feel for the way you work, your beliefs, how you can help them. And then that way they know, like, oh yeah, this is the piece that I want to do at the expo. I mean, last year was a really neat vibe. So we only had 12 vendors last year. This year we'll have 22, but people spent the entire day there. So they saw multiple readers, they saw multiple healers, they shopped at each of the art vendors that we had there, each of the vendors that had the mystical items. I mean, it was amazing. And I would see people like leave for lunch and then come back and do a couple more things. So definitely stay open to all of the opportunities that are there. And I just received word today that we can have access to the boardroom in the back. So I'm going to be reaching out to each of the vendors to offer the opportunity to offer a 20-25 minute class or experience during the day. So I'm like, ooh, so excited
That's
about
cool.
that. Yeah. So obviously I have no idea what that lineup is going to look like yet, but was really, really excited for that opportunity to even like last year was amazing. And I can't even imagine with double the vendors. And now that we can add these classes and experiences to the day too, I'm just like beyond thrilled. So yes.
So
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. So thank you for being a part of this year and yeah, just being a good friend too.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. This is like, it was an excellent event last year, and I'm really looking forward to doing it again this year.
Yes. So thank you all for joining us today. Please reach out to either one of us with any questions, and we will talk to you next time.